Welcome to the UCLA Distinguished Lecture Series in the Humanities, this year featuring Manfred Heiting. This special series allows us to bring distinguished scholars to campus to address the UCLA academic community and the broader Los Angeles public. The Division of Humanities is very pleased to welcome Manfred Heiting, an internationally renowned expert on and collector of photographs and especially of photography books. He'll be addressing three topics over the course of three lectures. First, what is an original photograph? Second, what is a photo book? And finally, what is a photo exhibition? Throughout the series, Manfred explores how the many modes of presentation of photography affect our experience of the art form. Manfred began his professional life as a designer, and between 1965 and 1982 was art director and later director of design at Polaroid International in Amsterdam. Since 1975, he has curated and organized over 50 exhibitions, including the history of instant photography. Manfred served as a founding member of the J. Paul Getty Museum Council. Since 1975, he has built a world-class encyclopedic collection on the history of photography and of photo books themselves. I hope you'll enjoy learning from Manfred's expertise in these lectures as much as I have enjoyed learning from him during the course of many conversations. Without further ado, please welcome Manfred Heiting.
Good afternoon and welcome. It is again a great pleasure and honor to conclude my lecture series, which have been organized by the Department of Humanities, with my third and last lecture here today. And I'm again indebted to Dean Scharberg and his team, led by Megan Kissinger, and of course to Professor George Baker, who made this lecture series happen. I also want to thank my friend Rick Ehrlich, who helped me again to liaise with the university. And I want to recognize and thank Julia and Jarell, my guardian angels, for the technical setup and all the surrounding environment. Thank you all for your support, and I'm grateful for all the help I'm getting here. For those of you who missed my two previous lectures, I like to mention briefly, and I need to do that, one of my core beliefs that have shaped my knowledge during the 50 years working in the field of photography as an advertising and book and exhibition designer, as well as a fair and exhibition organizer. Learn how to see. And of course, I'm still learning today. But as you know, learning is not only instrumental in the field of photography, the subject of my lecture series, it is also a fundamental requirement for anything we treasure in all of the visual arts and all aspects of our culture, and in the interaction with the people around us. Seeing is a vital aspect of teaching and learning itself. My series of three lectures here are only about learn how to see by looking at photographs, photo books, and today at exhibition installations. In my first two lectures, I have tried to explain the properties and attributes of an original photographic print, analog and digital, and what makes, in my opinion, a book with photographs a photo book in the 20th century. Today, my final lecture in the series, I will show and discuss with you what is a photo exhibition. What is needed? What is important to make a perfect photo exhibition installation or presentation? What did we learn from its development and its changes? From the first known event in 1851, thus in the 19th century, and how it has become one of the most popular events, cultural and social, in our society in the 21st century. I will conclude my lecture today with some subjective outlook based on the historical facts and examples that are you going to see, and I will try to explain what is needed to make a perfect photo exhibition installation. I'm also very pleased to announce that the university has taped the previous two lectures and is going to tape this one, I hope. And they soon will be available for you on YouTube. So you can check it out, make your own judgment, and come up with some more pointed ideas and possible recommendations you may want to share and discuss with your colleagues and peers. As with all my lectures, I will start again with another quote from John Ruskin, whose words can be used to best describe what art and exhibiting art should show. And I quote, "What we want art to do for us is to stay what is fleeting and to enlighten what is incomprehensible, to incorporate the things that have no measure and immortalize the things that have no duration." End of quote. Now let's see how this works. Photography has changed its cultural position from a technical novelty presented in the early world fairs to become an art form presented in major art museums. From inclusions in expositions of science and machinery to singular presentation in leading galleries and international photo festivals. From the presentation of icons of the medium and the work of upcoming and young photographers to major retrospectives. From an increasing number of masters to millions of free website presentations on the internet. And from an amateur spleen to multi-million-dollar investments. Yes, we have come a long way indeed. However, the principle of taking a photograph and looking at a photograph or seeing a photo exhibition with our own eyes has not changed so much during the same time. But photo exhibitions, so it seems, become nearly a part of our daily life. Let's face it, what would we do without exhibition openings? My following presentation will show you a selection of memorable and important photo exhibition installations during the 165 years of the medium, organized by governments, in all kinds of cultural and commercial entities, in public spaces, in museums and galleries, but also by some crazy people who, with their vision and passion, have given us some incredible experience with their exhibition installation and some major events. I have selected 40 exhibition installation events for you to look at, including different kind of installation from different museums, from different commercial events in public spaces and for entirely different purposes, and all from different countries and times. From the first known one at the Crystal Palace in 1851 to the museum and gallery exhibition of recent years. I also will address what needs to change in the 21st century to make photo exhibition installation as exciting and interesting for the new generation of collectors and enthusiasts, so we do not lose them to other fields of entertainment. All right, so what is a photo exhibition? How have 165 years of photography shaped our understanding? What has changed our perception, experience, and enjoyment during all these years? What are we looking for and looking at when we visit one? And what have we learned from it? 165 years is a long period, and as our society has changed during these years, so has the medium of photography and its installations of photo exhibitions. So to be able to learn from the past to make the right decisions for today, let's look first at photo exhibition installation from the past. I have structured my presentation here today in 7 distinguished groups of photo exhibition along a specific timeline and main historical events and in more or less chronological order that have shaped our society and social fabric during these periods, starting with the first recorded photographic presentation until today, when we can experience photo exhibition openings every day and look at presentations of free image exhibitions 24/7 on the internet. So I like to present my selections to these 7 groups, the beginnings, the first 25 years until World War I, between the wars, from 1950 to 1990, a totally new experience, annual and biannual events and fairs, very interesting installations, important and more recent museum exhibition, and finally exhibition in private galleries. In order to make it more interesting, these are the signs, logos, or posters that announce the selected exhibition events or location of these exhibitions at the time. So we have the Crystal Palace, the Grand Salon in 1852, the Photographic Society in London, 58, the International Exhibition in London, and the Centennial Philadelphia Exhibition in 1876. But also Paris in 1900, St. Louis in 1904, the Panama Pacific Exposition 1950, and Stieglitz's Gallery, and a selection of the 19th century camera clubs and salons. You then have Pressa in 28, Film and Photo in 29, and so on. And we have some surprises for Soviet exhibitions around 1933 to 1939, and ending with A Family of Man in 1955. Then you go on with Dialer B, Amsterdam, 1962. Heard of that one? Dialer B. Documenta 6, 1977. And Photokina, Arles, since 1970. Houston Photo Fest, and of course Paris Photo since 1996. And the museums, Victoria and Albert Museum, the Royal Photographic Society, which is now part of the Victoria and Albert Museum, the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, the Volkwang Museum, and the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles. The Dialer B is one of the surprises, and I hope you will enjoy what you will see. And finally, of course, the galleries from around the world: Gallery Rudolf Kicken, Frankel Gallery, Pace, McGill Gallery, Hans Kraus, Hamilton's, and Rose Gallery here in Los Angeles. We begin with the first 25 years and the selection I outlined before. The great exhibition at the Crystal Palace was opened by Queen Victoria in 1851. It was the first exhibition which included a presentation of photography. The Crystal Palace was also the first cast iron and plate glass building and covered nearly 1 million square feet of space on the grounds of Hyde Park in London. This here is the most popular view of the exhibition building from the left side, which because of its architectural phenomena was widely used in publication and postcards at the time. We don't have any particular photographic presentation at the Crystal Palace, but we do have the drawings of the enormous exhibit hall, and we also have proof that there were very famous daguerreotypes that they have been exhibited there for the first time. These are stunning daguerreotype images by Baron Jean-Baptiste Louis Gros, a French diplomat, later senator, as well as a notable pioneer of photography. Included are the first known images of portraits and interior views. Here actually showing his photographs in his own salon and the first known photographs of Greece. Here is one of those and an additional architectural study. Remember, outdoor views were of additional technical complications. Very few of these early daguerreotypes by Baron Gros exist and are scattered around in early official collections. Absolutely spectacular. The Grand Salon was opened at the Palais Royal in Paris on April 1st. Gustave Le Gray, the renowned painter turned photographer, was commissioned by the state to record the exhibition halls. These photographs were published in an album with original photographic prints of these images. This was the first time that we have an important documentation of an exhibition installation captured by an important photographer. However, in this instant, it is not the exhibition of photography, but the work of a photographer, and mostly paintings and sculptures, no photographs. Here is a selection of Le Gray's stunning and difficult to make photographs. I wished I had that album. Two more views of the Grand Salon, but as you can see, still the same old tradition filling the walls. The Photographic Society of London was one of the first and most prestigious photo society of its time, and some of its successors still have visible traces in British photography today. Together with the Société Française de Photographie, it organized its first exhibition at the South Kensington Museum in London in 1858, which later became the Victoria and Albert Museum. This is indeed a rare look at the exhibition's installation, and a very inspiring one. Curators, be aware. How many prints fit on a wall? It is the only recorded installation, a photograph by Charles Thurston Thompson. Further research may reveal more images. We also have information of some images that had been displayed in this exhibition. Certainly not noticeable when you are looking at these images, but here are the two important ones. Here is a great Francis Frith from his travel to Egypt, and a famous Roger Fenton, a bust from the British Museum. The International Exhibition in 1862, again in London, was the first World's Fair featuring over 28,000 exhibitors from 36 countries. It was situated on the grounds which today houses the National History Museum and the Science Museum, about 21 acres, quite big. This is a stereoscopic installation view of the French Photographic Gallery at this exhibition, and published by the London Stereoscopic Company. This view was among 350 stereo views of the exhibition using the new collodion wet plate process, which needed a shorter exposure time. The Centennial Exhibition in Philadelphia in 1876 was the first official World Fair in America, celebrating the 100th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. It included several rooms devoted to photography with many views from around the country. So here is a view of a typical installation from the Philadelphia exhibition. Still show the objects from floor to ceiling, using every space imaginable, and this was just one of several rooms, but this is a nice one. Now let's have a look at a few exhibitions from before World War I. Spanning a time of about 35 years in which photography matured. I'd like to show you first 4 views from the earlier camera clubs and their annual salons, from Boston to California, and spreading out all over the world, starting even before 1880 until well into the 1920s, including, and of course, including Alfred Stieglitz's 291 in New York. What all these camera clubs and earlier photo exhibitions shown before have in common is their organizers' lack of educated and historical perspective to provide a visual and informed presentation, just to fill the walls with the framed photographs and, if possible, from floor to ceiling. Here are those four: the Boston Camera Club in 1881, the Ashfield Camera Club in 1910, and with the members showing their work in nature, why not? An American Pictorial Photographic Club taken in 1902 with lots of space. The photos on the walls see more decoration. A California Camera Club in 1914, now with office, meeting space, and viewing the new work on the walls. Have a closer one on this one. It's very nice. Everything is there to have a wonderful day looking at photographs. Until Alfred Stieglitz came along and opened his 291 gallery in New York in 1905 and kept it open until 1917. This view is from one of the early exhibitions in 1906, and it would take many more years of his relentless efforts to promote art photography and the individual print before others would follow. He was the pioneer, the visionary of photography as art. And his Camera Work magazine and his exhibitions, installations are the towering testimony of his vision. Let's continue to look at the major exhibition from this time. The Exposition Universelle de 1900 in Paris, it's most of all remembered to have brought Art Nouveau to the masses. The Czech painter and graphic artist Alfons Mucha became world famous here. Unfortunate, no photographic installation views are known to exist. Here is a spectacular view of that World Fair in a photograph, but only the outside. The International Exposition in St. Louis in 1904 was a stunning exhibition. We should remember St. Louis in 1904 celebrated the 100th anniversary of the Louisiana Purchase. And also, St. Louis was a place of the 1904 Summer Olympics. It must have been an extraordinary time in St. Louis that year. However, only photographic views of the fair ground could be found. There must be some records or installations somewhere in some archive, so lots of work is ahead of us. IFA, the International Photographic Exhibition in Dresden in 1909, was the largest and most memorable world fair of photography before World War I in Germany. The exhibition was organized under the auspices of the city and presented over 600 exhibitors. When you look at the installation, we finally can see that the organizers of the photographic section started to get more organized and more in line of what we have come to expect from photo exhibitions. Let's have a closer look at one of the displays. The salon-style settings was capturing the taste of the upcoming middle class of the time, before World War I. And finally, in this group, the Panama Pacific exhibition in San Francisco in 1915. World War I was already ravaging Europe. Here are 4 photographic views of the Panama Pacific exhibition in San Francisco. The 2 lower views are only of the outside buildings. Still impressive and photographic, though not what I hope for, to show you the photographic installation. Interesting, of course, is the top right view, the presentation of Ford's Model T, already introduced in 1908. But as you can see, still major attraction of the show. Between the world wars, the rapid development of camera art and craft by industry And the avant-garde movement, the Soviet and Nazi German propaganda expansion, in monumental photo and exhibition projects, the Bauhaus, the advancement of advertising and printing techniques, more international worlds and trade fairs, and the public appetite for cinema and entertainment also created the most important photo exhibition in the history of the medium, mostly in Germany and France. So let's have a closer look at a few famous photo exhibition installations selected in this group from that period. First, Presse, the International Presse Exhibition in Cologne in 1928. It was the first international fair open for 5 months, hosted by Germany after World War I, and was stretching more than 2 miles along the River Rhine. The world came together to show its latest products and knowledge in everything relating to communication, printing, publishing, radio, and cinema, and each nation in its own pavilion, including the church. Lissitzky's design of the Russian pavilion at Presse was perhaps the most celebrated one in installation history. And just the views presented here, only 4, of about 20 known to exist, will highlight the ingenious concept by Lissitzky. What you see here are 12 feet high photo enlargements. Here is a closer look at Lenin, very impressive. And you haven't seen anything like this after that. The next is the International Exhibition Film and Photo, FIFO, in Stuttgart in 1929. It can certainly be called the most celebrated and most referenced exhibition of photography of all times. The exhibition has traveled in an ever-changing and somewhat reduced size to Essen, Zurich, Danzig, Wien, Zagreb, Tokyo, Osaka, Munich, and ended in Berlin. One reason for the changing of the exhibition was the fact that prints were sold out of the exhibition to the occasional buyer. Why not? We should note that Moholy was instrumental in its organization. Edward Weston was responsible selecting all American West Coast photography, and Edward Steidl for all American East Coast participants. Here are views into several installations. The most interesting one is the room entirely devoted to the work of Moholy Nagy, presumably installed under his supervision. As you can see, Moholy was also one of the few photographers at the time to embrace large format prints and apparently filling up the walls. Here, a closer look of his own installation. How careless he was with these vintage prints. The installation of the German pavilion at the annual Salon of the French Society of Decorative Artists in 1930 was a masterpiece of installation design. It was organized by the Deutsche Werkbund German Craft Association, which commissioned the architect and former Bauhaus director Walter Gropius to be the artistic director for the exhibition. He asked Herbert Bayer, Laszlo Moholy Nagy, and Marcel Breuer to join him to realize this prestigious exhibition. What an incredible dream team. The world's top, best in class, united in one project, unmatched, not possible today. As you can see here, the result was utterly new approach in installation design, and not about photography, but with photography. The Paris presentation was a game changer in exhibition installation design, rarely seen today. The views I have selected, only a few, grand impressions from what had captured the public's and authorities' imagination by surprise, as I'm sure it does with you, was so unique about that only that dream team could think of it. The perspective view of how the human eye would see. It does focus curved, like the eyeball itself, which they incorporated brilliantly into their installation design. You may not be able to do this with displaying and selling art photography, but then I hope that this is not the only use of photography in the future. The international exhibition Das Lichtbild Image of Light in Essen in 1931 was traveling and trailing film and photo, and focused much more on the German avant-garde, but at some venues were also even shown together. And with no catalogue of its own, Das Lichtbild was internationally considered less important, but actually it was at least equally important. This is the one and only view available of this influential photo installation, directed by Kurt Wilhelm Kästner and Max Borchardt from Essen in 1931. Interesting to note, the enlarged photograph on the right is the famous Lottes Auge, Lottes Eye, which was even bigger in use in the film and photo exhibition, but at that time, size never caught the desire that size has now today. How smart. When Andrew Breton, as a member of the French Communist Party, went to Moscow in 1930 to talk to his contemporaries in mindset and vision, he also had a message for the many Russian propaganda officials he met during these talks and meetings. Photography is the best and most effective medium for propaganda. They took this idea to one person who was so obsessed with his own image and portraits, Joseph Stalin. It is of no surprise that this seed came quick to fruition and found its way also in photo exhibition in a very big and unusual way. What you are seeing here, a surprise, I hope, is a general plan and instructions for a photo exhibition installation to local party offices all over the Soviet Union. During the period between 1932 and most likely 1939 to organize important photo propaganda events directed by Stalin, making use of the pre-packaged photo exhibition panels complete with text and photographs and in the exact order of the display and walkthrough. So here you see a number of these panels from two different photo exhibitions completely finished for presentation on the wall. How simple it is to create a photo exhibition installation in over 500 places, each time exactly in the same way with only a need for nails and a hammer. They didn't have tape at the time. No curator, but Comrade Stalin is always watching. And finally for this group, Arts and Techniques, Paris 1937, the largest of all the Paris exposition in public spaces, and one of the most photographically documented one. The view you see here is a typical image showing the bold use of photographic presentation at this fair. It is arguably the fair with the most comprehensive photographic documentation ever assembled and published about any event, with a report staggering 17 volumes, each about 2 inches thick, and with over 1,000 photographs to illustrate this event. What you see here is capturing this impressive photo installation using photography as its best, large. Let's now go on to the time that some of us can still remember and look at photo exhibition installation from the 1950s and 1990s. This is also the post-war area where the organizer of these exhibition presentations, installations, and events were towering individuals who became often more important than the installation they served. Here are the first 6. Professor Otto Steinert, Edward Steichen, Willem Sandberg, Klaus Honneff, Cornel Kappa, and Robert Dalpier. Each of them have organized, curated, and publicized many important photo exhibition, installation, and events, but we will look only at the groundworking ones they did. Steinert, a member of the group Photoform, which had its first exhibition in Saarbrücken in 1951. It was a movement for artistic and experimental photography. Other famous pioneers of this movement besides Steinert himself were Hajek Halke and Schargesheimer. We only have this one installation view from the first Photoform called Subjektive Fotografie, Subjective Photography in Saarbrücken in 1954. So the left view is another image of Otto Steinert in his most known activity, teaching and looking and judging at photographers' work, and very often destroying the work, and sometimes even the photographer's belief in himself. Steinert was a genius, a visionary, but certainly not a nice person. Edward Steichen, he was a towering force in the history of 20th century photography. Born in Bivanche, a small village in Luxembourg, he started out as a painter and became one of the great art and fashion photographers of his time. A museum curator, an exhibition organizer, and needless to say, the director of the government's Department of Photographic Documentation in the Pacific. No one has ever accomplished such a successful career in our field and beyond. He also gave us the most renowned and influential photographic exhibition in the second half of the 20th century, The Family of Man. It opened at the Museum of Modern Art in New York on January 24, 1955, and lasted until May 8, 1955. Steichen selected 503 photographs by 273 photographers. He also had a very particular idea how to present the work of so many photographers from around the world. Once the final selection was made, he requested from the selected photographers the negatives on loan of specific images of his choosing in order to make his own enlargement from this exhibition. In other instances, he requested prints to a specific size from the photographers. No single photographer challenged his request, including such giants as August Sander, Cartier-Bresson, Ansel Adams, Harry Callahan, Robert Capa, Robert Frank, Walker Evans, and all the other great photographers. Certainly not possible anymore today. He also produced 3 sets, one for touring the world for 8 years, seen by more than 9 million visitors. Since 1994, one set is permanently installed in Clairvaux-Carcel, Luxembourg, close to Bivanche, Steichen's birthplace. In 2003, the exhibition was included in the UNESCO's Memory of World Register. Dylaby, Dynamic Labyrinth, was not a photo exhibition, but it had a unique position in the history of museum exhibition installations. Since no particular work nor document of it from any of the 6 famous artists, Rauschenberg, Reiss, de Saint-Phal, Spöri, Tinguely, and Utvedt, they are among the leading situationists. No work did survive after the exhibition closed after only 30 days. This exhibition was one of the early art performances and the brainchild of Willem Sandberg, the director of the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. The ambitious dynamic labyrinth project needed to present the artist's concept and ideas and was a one-time performance And the space at the museums was created especially for this purpose, and the artist had 7 days to create the presentation. And here, photography gets to the forefront. The only memories of the works in this exhibition we have today are the photographs of the installation, made for the catalog by Ed van der Elsken, the young and now internationally known Dutch photographer. A very interesting art performance and a stunning document by van der Elsken. So in this sample, it is photographic documentation of the art installation which gave us only records, and the objects are not there anymore, and it became part of the photographer's work, not of the participating artists. Very unusual. Documenta, the oldest still existing international fair for contemporary art in Germany, taking place every 5 years for 100 days in Kassel. It was founded in 1955. Documenta 6, the sixth Documenta in 77, included for the first time a section devoted entirely to photography, organized and curated by Klaus Honneff. Honneff was already a resourceful journalist, a feared art critic, and an accomplished author of numerous publications on photography. Between 1974 until 1999, he was also the head of exhibition at the Rheinisches Landesmuseum in Bonn. Here are several installation views from Documenta 6. Photographs could still be enlarged for exhibition purposes, but framing the object was already becoming the law of the land. Particularly notable should be this presentation of the work of Walker Evans, never available or made in this large size until recently, but approved by Mr. Evans himself before he passed away in 1975. Robert Delpierre had organized many outstanding exhibitions for the Centre National de la Photographie, of which Delpierre was the director, and presented many exhibitions at the Palais de Tokyo. Delpierre owned an advertising agency and a publishing house. His most famous publications in the 1950s included Robert Frank's first book, Les Américaines. He was also instrumental publisher for Henri Cartier-Bresson and Joseph Kudelka, as well as for the creator of the photo pocket series, Photo Poche. This one of the most exciting installation for one of America's most accomplished photographer, William Klein, and his first retrospective in Paris in 1986. This installation, with its unique design, jointly created by Delpierre and Klein, really showed the photographer's work as its best. Remember, Klein was also a painter, a designer, and a filmmaker. It certainly must have been a very exciting experience, like walking through a movie. Very refreshing and different, but also long ago. The next group, annual and biannual events, were also created and made by individuals because of their passion and dedication for photography. They were all photographers, but gave everything they got to the events they invented. So now we will look at the installation of annual and biannual events from the three most memorable and still existing photographic events from as early as 1949. These are also the other three events that are tightly linked to their organizers, more or less inseparable. We begin with the oldest photographic fair organized after the war, Photokina, World's Fair of Imaging. It was initiated by the German Photographic Industry Association. First opening was in 1949. Alfred Gruber was an independent publicist and commercial photographer. And between 1950 and 1980, Gruber initiated and organized the cultural section of this commercial fair, the Photokina Bilderschau and picture shows, that made him the grand seigneur of photography in Germany. Here you see on the top left the entrance to the show in 1970, and top right the portrait of an elegant gentleman, Mr. L. Fritz Gruber. The view on the lower left was from the master of the portrait show in 1960, and to the lower right a view into the Deutsche Bilderschau, German picture shows from 1954. The top view is shocking news for vintage collectors. Man Ray's first and only in large-scale exhibition after the war in 1960, not made by him, but installed by himself. Quite amazing to see those large Man Rays. In the lower left, the first exhibition in 1970 of color work by Hiroshi Hamaya. Lower right, a presentation of the Second World's Fair of Photography in 1968. Many international renowned photographers of the time were rediscovered, and now famous photographers of later years were discovered at Photokina. One more look at these large Man Rays. Impossible today. Rencontre Arles is the oldest photo festival still organized every year since 1970. Based on the dream of the renowned photographer Lucien Clerc, it became the model for many photo festivals to come, all over the globe. But most of them lacked the charm, historic photographic perspective, the weather of the Provence and Côte d'Azur, and the French food. In the beginning, it was a photographic family affair, growing bigger and bigger, and the programs from exhibition in some years more than 50 to portfolio reviews covering every possible space in the city. Here you see some of the typical exhibition installation in quite unusual places. Churches, empty factory halls, or even private shops renting their space to the festival. The person on the lower right is Lucien Clerc with an image of his mentor, Pablo Picasso, behind him. He is the only photographer to become a member of the prestigious Académie Française. A particularly unique attraction were the evening slide presentation in the Roman amphitheater. For the first 5 nights every year, it was always a highlight of the festival. Sitting on hard stone was no fun, but no one cared. This was Arles, and it shows were mostly an incredible experience. Worth going there. Houston Photo Fest. In Arles, Frederick Baldwin, Wendy Vetris, and Barbara Bentel, she left the team after a few years, co-founded Photo Fest in 1986, the first of its kind in America. Since then, every 2 years, photographers, curators, and collectors and editors from around the world come to Houston to meet and converse, to review portfolios and enjoy the many photo exhibition installations in ever-increasing numbers. These are Wendy Vetris and Frederick Baldwin, the co-founder of PhotoFest, and 3 views of typical contemporary photo exhibition installation in rented spaces all through the city. But it is a portfolio review that has moved this event to become the most important one in this country. Here you see curators, collectors, editors, and the photographers looking at each other and at the work to judge, discuss, and many photographers started their career right there. We also need to recognize the important position of photographic art fairs. Of course, there's APAT, founded in 1978 in Rochester, and after that organized in New York. But here I like to give you an idea of what is happening by looking at Paris Photo in Paris, because Paris Photo is the eminent fair of art photography today, period. It is the initial result of the efforts of a young Dutch art book fair organizer, Rick Gardella, and the foresight and financial support of the eminence grise of photography in the latter part of the 20th century, Harry Lunn. In 1996, and for 4 years, The annual event took place at the Carrousel du Louvre and somehow struggled along, but not because the presentation lack of quality or interest or number of visitors, but because of poor management. Reed Exposition France purchased the fair from Gardella in 2000, and after a few years and with growing success, moved it to the Grand Palais. And it has become the most successful photographic art fair today, with an ever-growing number of visitors and buyers. However, attempts to create a secondary venue of the fair at the Paramount Studio in Los Angeles have failed commercially and did not survive the initial commitment to operate the fair for 3 years. We all loved it here and wished it would have succeeded, right? The views of the many installations in Paris shown here are giving you the size and perspectives of the fair, and on the lower left, typical gallery installations. And then there are our museums, the custodian of art history. They are increasingly in trouble, in particular when organizing photo exhibitions. In the past, it was common to exhibit once or twice a year what was in one's own collection. However, this is not enough anymore, and blockbusters are not found in museum basements. And it also required increasing amount of the annual budget, creating insurance, transportation, security, just for starters. Not an easy task. Today, sponsoring is requiring more and more attention than often is given to the message and the content itself. I have selected only 4 different types of museums and some of their photo exhibition installations to give you some idea where we stand today. There are many, many more, but time is not on our side. The Victoria and Albert Museum was founded already in 1852, but had several name and location changes until it was given its present name and location in 1899. Now part and included is the Royal Photographic Society. It finally found its home there, making this museum not only the earliest one, but also the largest one with a photographic collection in the world. The richness of the historical priceless collection, unfortunately, has left not many visible traces when it comes to photo exhibition installations. But some of the more recent ones have been quite interesting. This is a view into a major horse exhibition which opened in 2014. Impressive in style, including this one, but it demonstrates a little bit the common situation in museums. And I wished it would have been more inventive with this kind of subject matter. The Museum of Fine Arts in Houston was established in 1900, but its fame in photographic circles comes from the founding head of the photo department and longtime curator Ann Tucker. When she arrived at the museum in 1976, and besides several photo exhibitions organized in the 1930s, there was no trace of any photography or any photo collection in the museum when she came. Her nearly 35 years at the museum made her not only the longest serving department head in museum history, but who also started the photo collection and formed it over the entire period of her tenure. Her curatorial accomplishment made her America's Best Curator of the Year 2001 by Time magazine. Here are 4 views from an exhibition installation of the most important European photographer's teacher and innovator of pictorialism and its many printing techniques, Heinrich Kuhn. Although he was admired by Alfred Stieglitz and a lifelong friend, his work never took off in America. The exhibition For a New World to Come was a well thought out exhibition about experiments in Japanese art and photography from 1968 to 1979, organized by the Museum of Fine Arts curator at the time, Yasuo Nakamura, in 2015. The exhibition is the first of its kind in this country and combined original installations, photography, and photo publication from that time. The installation was quite a fresh approach and a very different experience. The Wolfgang Museum in Essen today, the most prominent art museum in Germany, particularly of German avant-garde, and of course home of the most important photography collection in Germany as well. It was also the first private museum in Germany, founded in 1902 and by a renowned collector, Karl Ernst Osthaus, in a very small place, Hagen, near Essen. Folkwang, I learned, comes from Norwegian and is the afterlife meadow after death. Very inspiring. From there, it was relocated in 1921 to the more commercial center in Western Germany in Essen, also home of the steel giant Krupp. We already have looked at the earlier photo exhibition, Das Lichtbild, from 1931. Here you see views of photo exhibition installation from the last several years, and also in the new extension and new architecture of the museum. It certainly looks more and more like any other important museum, but once in a while a bit more inventive. The Department of Photography at the J. Paul Getty Museum was established only in 1984, and its first department head was Weston Neff. The accumulation of several important collections and continuous and informed acquisition have ranked the photography department of this new institution among the 5 most important collections in America, representing the complete history of the medium. It is also one of the very few of these 5 institutions which has a permanent and the largest exhibition space to present photo exhibition. These are installation views from the more recent exhibition, Real Ideal Photography in France, 1847 to 1860. A superb photo exhibition, again elegantly installed with an incredible sense for detail and quality only a few museums and curators can pull off. With the last and final group in my presentation, contemporary galleries, I also want to pay homage to the many passionate men and women who have dedicated their career and often all their private life to show us known masters in their prime work, educate us, informing and guide us with new, interesting young photographers, and also bringing new curators and their experience and knowledge and advice they have acquired and share with them in their discussions. Galleries are even more in trouble than the museums. They can only show what is for sale. So it takes passion, creative entrepreneurship, and low expectations of return on investment to present photo exhibition to an increasing number of spoiled visitors. Increasingly, galleries have also to participate in more and more commercial art fairs at an additional high cost to reach the global collector. The 6 galleries I could select who are trying to create very personalized, sometimes charming environments in their limited spaces to please their customers, here are the few. Rudolf Kicken opened his gallery Lichttropfen, Light Drops in Aachen in 1974. Together with the photographer Wilhelm Schürmann, he moved to Cologne in 1979 and opened the gallery Rudolf Kicken, and after several changes with a new partner and several addresses in Cologne, moved to Berlin to form Kicken Berlin in 2000. After his untimely death in 2014, his wife Annette Kicken continues the gallery and its pioneering programs of classical, modern, German and European photography, but also looking to the East. The exhibition programs of KIK in Berlin exceeds those of many renowned museums. The pioneering work and photo exhibition about Czech avant-garde, the František Drittikol, Jaroslav Ressler, and Josef Sudek, his first major exhibition in the West in 1976, Bauhaus, New Objectivity, Umboringer Platz, it goes on. They have created an enormous portfolio of major accomplished photographers. What you see here, top row, are views from the new private gallery in Berlin, bottom row, installations of Tefaf in Maastricht, and at the Basel Art Miami Fair from the more recent past. The Frankel Gallery in San Francisco can be called the longest serving gallery in America, still operating successfully today. Founded in 1979 by Jeffrey Frankel, the gallery specializes in contemporary photography shows, but is also considered an important powerhouse in 20th century masters. The Bay Area is full of savvy and potent collectors, and the gallery is serving all of them with informed and committed advice. Here are a few recent installations, spacious, elegant, but maybe a bit undercooled. The Pace McGill Gallery in New York is a brainchild of Peter McGill, who is one of the few galleries in the field with an MFA degree. After some further training, he opened his own gallery, Pace McGill, in 1983 under the umbrella of the Pace Gallery and its owner, Arme Grincher, who also provided a remarkable network of major collectors and traditional art and paintings, works on paper and sculpture, and now photography. Peter McGill is also one of a handful of leading experts and gallerists of 20th century, often unique masterworks. You can see one of them on the installation lower left. And as you can see, these are not the only light color wallpapers, and many of these small photo exhibitions have often not more than 25 exquisite prints, but most of these are all highlights from the history of the medium. Hans Kraus established his gallery, I would call it more a salon de connoisseur, in New York in 1984. He's one of the expert in 19th century and early 20th century master works, and presents breathtaking and often in-depth photo exhibition of newly discovered or known images in impeccable condition from that period. It comes without saying that what he shows is always tantalizing feast for the mind, even of other experts. And for those with deep pockets, not always guaranteeing the standard return on investment of contemporary art, but rather a crowning of a collection. As you can see, very meticulous installation, mostly in salon atmosphere, a real place of learning. Hamilton Galleries in London started as a general exhibition space and is now mastered by Tim Jeffries, who took over this space in 1984. The gallery was instrumental in staging important one-man photo shows of photographers in fashion, advertising, and portraiture, but also, among others, represents the work of Don McCullin, the famous war photographer. When you visit the gallery in London, seen at the top row, or visit its booths at most international art fairs, two of the bottom row, you will always notice an incredible care and creativity the gallery will invest in the installation, presenting the work of its photographers, sublime and outstanding. Our own Rose Gallery in Santa Monica. The gallery was founded by Rose Shoshana in 1991 and is famous for its internationally recognized conceptualized photo exhibition. Rose is known for her personal and passionate involvement in everything the gallery does, in the career of her photographers and artists, and she is not only concerned with the economics of the gallery. quite rare these days. Shown here is an installation of the British photographer Martin Parr, always with a personal rose touch. One more installation I feel compelled to share with you. Commemorates the most tragic event in American recent history. Remembering the tragedy of September 11, it opened on September 24th, 2001, at a former clothing shop at Prince Street, very close to Ground Zero, organized by a team of dedicated students and photographers around Charles Straub, Michael Schulin, and Gilles Perez, and a few others. It was the most emotional-based project ever organized by the spontaneity of a few, very few, but with thousands of followers, and on view 2 weeks after the terror attack. Millions came to see. Incredible and very moving. Well, indeed, these were quite a lot of installation views and many different approaches in the art of presenting photography. And if you are dizzy of sorts and looking at your watch, I understand, and I want to make some conclusive remarks. And I start with making a reference to Ansel Adams again, comparing photography with music. It is in the installations that needs all the focus and attention, and it needs a full orchestra. The curator, the architect, the designer, the framer or installer, the producer and the builder, and the painter and the typography for the lettering, and to bring all the elements together in either public spaces like most events, fairs, and independent photo installation, or in fixed location like museums and galleries. This team and all its professional craft has to create the photo exhibition installation to make them enjoyable for the visitors and important for the medium and memorable for the historian. Of course, you need good photography as well to make a great photo exhibition installation. So after all these historical foundations, I try to show you today and the efforts of countless individuals and institutions, their knowledge, experience, their vision, and passionate dedication, and their abilities and mission to teach us, to educate us, to present us striking photo exhibition installations. It all comes to a shrieking halt with the internet. And our contemporary believes that we can do everything, make anything ourselves. We know it in a minute. What is needed, and we have it, let me share it with you, typical presentation on the internet. What you see here is the result of one click when you Google photography. As you can see, the top row was lets you choose a subject matter. And what I did choose was just another unorganized click. And here it goes, picture after picture. It's pure consumption. What a waste of your time. Think about it. The early presentation and installation you have seen here today were based on what was known and available at the time. From an absolute surprise to look at the photograph, never seen before, and then as many as was possible on a wall, to a more subtle and pointed reason to show photography, the particular subject matter, and to reveal, to surprise and beautify, entice curiosity, to look for more, and to convince the viewer of that reason. And then came installation that presented a new type of vision and beauty, and further came shows to influence, to propagate, political or commercially, the viewer's opinion, and his consequential action, good or bad. And you saw installation in museums and galleries to teach and to educate and to inform the viewer about art, that it is art, and convince the viewer to become part of this cultural environment. Using Ansel Adams' credo, I also hoped to have convinced you that for the perfect photo installation, one has to use a full orchestra, the full team of professionals, either to install or to command the message or the object itself, to learn how to see, to desire, and to enjoy the experience. With all the various installations you have seen here today, I also hope you have come to appreciate even more the work of the organizers, many of the professionals involved, and many, but not all, museums. In some, but far from all, galleries. And therefore should be grateful to the work made by passionate and sometimes crazy people to please their visitors and give them a good time and to help them to get educated. However, there is also too much focus, efforts today to announce photo exhibition or photography events all over the place, for which no reason for organizing it exists. It is also, sadly enough, part of our society today to have an idea, see something every day of the week, and run immediately for action, to create, prepare, install, and present photo exhibition, photo presentation, even photo events and photo fairs in public spaces, in museums, in galleries, on the internet, on the fly. And without thinking about its purpose, catch a trend before it happened, as I say. Please do not save all of it in your memory. Your hard drive will crash soon. Finally, there is one more important thing to cope with and to realize in the 20th century, photography was about art and craft. The most important aspect for museums and collectors and galleries was and is the original print, the object. This has completely changed with digital imagery made in the 21st century. There is no original print anymore, no object, only an original image. We have lost the sense for presentation, size, aura, and individual print quality. When looking at a digital print, the machine will always make a high quality print, anytime, anywhere, once it has been created by the photographer or artist. There is no darkroom manipulation anymore. The photographer's work is done once he pushed the button on the machine. This is the 21st century, and so we have to adjust our thinking, reset our experience, reevaluate our judgment, and re-examine our criteria when looking at a picture made in the 21st century, made with a digital device, when looking at contemporary images, when visiting a photo exhibition, in a museum, in a gallery, or an auction. The curators and their orchestras of today need a new vision, a new approach, a new presentation. There are many attempts made during the last decade to have a more exciting look at photo exhibition installation, particularly by non-museum institutions, and often by well-known photographers like Robert Frank and Joseph Kudelka. Judge for yourself. Maybe the museum should look a bit closer to this trend. Maybe it is a more contemporary approach to exhibition presentation. Here is one for Joseph Kudelka at the Aperture Gallery in New York in 2008. This one presenting the launch of a new book on the Russian invasion of Prague in 1968. Not possible in traditional museum environments. There are hardly any vintage prints available. And think about the cost of creating, shipping, insurance, and security, not possible without a multi-million-dollar budget. So yes, we need a new way of presenting photo exhibitions in museums as well. But the medium will always certainly give us many, many new possibilities. With this, maybe somewhat mixed outlook towards the future of photo collecting or visiting exhibitions, looking at real photo installation in museums and in galleries, I like to conclude with a quote from Jean Baudrillard, who summed it up perfectly, what I wanted to say, and I quote, "Everywhere one seeks to produce meaning, to make the world signify, to render it visible. We are not, however, in danger of lacking meaning. Quite to the contrary, we are gorged with meaning, and it's killing us, as more and more things have fallen in the abyss of meaning. They have retained less and less of their charm of appearances." End of quote. If this lecture you have experienced, you agree with some of the points, you will see it on YouTube, and if you like what you have heard, spread the gospel. Thank you very much.